Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, a free site, bettingangle.us, a free site. Um, we're going live here. I'm a little bit bummed that I couldn't figure out the webcam to get that to work, but that's okay. If you post chats, I should be able to see the chats. Let's talk about a fight that I think the public has wrong, and that's the Joyce, Joseph Parker fight. And I believe that this fight favors the underdog, Parker, heavily. Let's talk about why, but first remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Now, just understand, before I start, I'm on a losing streak for big fights. I thought that AJ Usyk rematch was going to end by stoppage. It did not. To my surprise, AJ doesn't get the car out of first gear for several rounds. Um, I'm unsure why he was so tentative. Maybe it was because he had a new trainer and there was a lack of familiarity and he was trying some new things in the ring. Right? He's trying to go to the body. He's trying to be a little bit more on his front foot. He has his legs bent a little bit more. He's prepared to give away his height. So what happened is in that fight, AJ doesn't get going until the later rounds. I believe his best round of that fight is round 9. I was expecting a different fight. I was expecting a much faster paced fight. Right? I was not expecting the slower paced fight. The Andy Luis Ortiz fight did have some knockdowns, but I was not expecting 43-year-old Ortiz to actually be as fresh as he was in those later rounds. And I also wasn't expecting Andy to be as tentative as he was after getting the 2 knockdowns. Right? So just understand, I enter this video on a losing streak for at least heavyweight big fights. So let's talk about this fight. Let's talk about what I see here. In my opinion, as skilled as Joyce is, and understand, I picked Joyce over Daniel Dubois in a fight that wasn't clear before it happened. Right? I believe in Joyce. I think Joyce has more skills than many of the elite fighters out there. But Joyce is a skill guy. I get that he's an athlete as well, but he's not a quick twitch athlete. In other words, Joyce strikes me as more of an endurance athlete than he is the kind of athlete who can come in and deal with explosive hand speed, with great foot movement. Now, the secret to this fight, one that bookmakers aren't appreciating, is the fact that Joseph Parker, his opponent, is athletically one of the best athletes in the heavyweight division. You name me the physical attribute, and I will tell you that between these two men, Joseph Parker has the advantage. He has the faster hands. He has the faster feet. If we get into skill areas, I need for people to understand too, there's an experience gap. I understand. Both men have amateur pedigrees. But recognize that Joyce, even though he fought Dubois, even though Dubois has a share of the heavyweight title, right? Both guys haven't fought the same level of fighter, right? Joyce has fought people like Ustinov, who was past his expiration date. Brian Jennings, Bermain Stavern, right? Stavern, as hard as he hits, is a potted plant. He's not analogous to a mover like Joseph Parker, right? Now, by contrast, I want you to think of the biggest names in the heavyweight division. Just understand that Joseph Parker has fought AJ. He's fought Andy Ruiz, right? Both AJ and Ruiz have held shares of the heavyweight title. He fought Dillian White, right? Dillian White is so good that Dillian White has fought AJ and has fought Tyson Fury, right? Understand too, Joseph Parker fought Junior Fa when Junior Fa was unbeaten. He fought Dimitrenko. And of course, he fought Derek Chisora twice. Now, given the imbalance in the resumes, I do wonder why Joe Joyce is favored in this fight. Let me also say, too, both guys, and I see the comments here, both guys showed up heavy at the weigh-in. Joe Joyce is entering this fight in the 270s. I would argue that the heavier weights actually favors Parker, right? Because Parker's in the 250s. Parker's going to be the one moving more than Joe Joyce. I'm not sure if Joyce is going to be able to keep up at 271. Understand, too, that Joe Joyce jab, and it's one of the best in the division. It's what really stops Daniel Dubois. But those jabs go out the window when you're facing a great athlete who can bend, right, get out of jab range, and also has the foot speed advantage on you. The jab's really the final part of a process where a fighter is able to hunt you down, right, and is able to get close enough to you and time it where he can hit you with a jab. Joe Joyce won't be able to do the process because Parker is going to be moving. Right? Understand, Parker faced Andy Ruiz. Now, Ruiz isn't blessed with foot speed, but nor is Joyce. And Parker fights stretches of that fight on his back foot. And Andy couldn't catch up with him. Even if Joyce is aggressive and is on his front foot, how do we know he's even going to be able to catch up with Parker? Now, I see a comment here from BM who writes, Parker is too methodical. Joyce isn't going to give him time to think in there. I would argue the opposite. Parker is too spontaneous. Parker's effort varies too greatly. Right? He's had some uninspired fights. That first Derek Chisora fight, what's he thinking? It's when Parker has some structure that Parker is able to operate. Parker has the higher ceiling. That second Derek Chisora fight, Parker's on his game. Chisora is more outgunned by Joseph Parker than he was Alexander Usyk. Also, in terms of time to think, folks, there are going to be times in this fight where Parker has too much time to think. He's going to take a step back. He's going to be out of the pocket. He's going to have several seconds to figure out what his next move is. Right? He's the better athlete in this fight, at least not in terms of endurance, but in terms of suddenness, quickness, foot speed. Folks, it's all Parker. Okay? Just food for thought. Right? Um, Let me say too that Parker, his best fights have reached a level that I don't think Joe Joyce has reached. The Hughie Fury fight. Please, after this video, take a look at that fight. Now, Fury is excellent at negative energy, right? Moving back, making you miss, showcasing his foot speed. The point is, Parker in that fight is on his front foot. Parker in that fight is coming in low at times. Parker is hunting Fury, and you see the hand speed. You recognize that one of the worst things to ever happen to Parker was the referee in the Anthony Joshua fight, who would not allow Parker to fight inside. Right? Let me say too, I see that the Religion of Gravity is written here. Joyce is a lean 270. Well, Parker's a lean 255. Folks, both guys weighed a lot. Where was the body fat at that weigh-in? I can say this with certainty. While Joyce is a lean 270, he's not as fast as Joseph Parker in hand speed, foot speed. He can't move as fast as Joseph Parker. Right? I see here Russell Morgan has written, Joyce carries the extra weight much more naturally. Parker struggled with movement against Hughie Fury at mid-240s. Let me say this about Hughie Fury, and I do expect Fury to lose his next fight against Michael Hunter, right? Because I feel Hunter is underrated. But Hughie Fury moves a lot better than Joe Joyce, right? Boxing's a relativity game. First off, I thought Parker moved well against Hughie Fury. But more importantly, the fact that Parker had some problems with Hughie Fury in a fight that I consider to be one of Parker's best performances doesn't mean that he's going to have a problem with Joe Joyce, because Joe Joyce isn't as back foot as Hughie Fury. Joe Joyce doesn't move as well as Hughie Fury. Joe Joyce isn't as defensively blessed as Hughie Fury. I see Jay Foreman has written, Joyce was already slow at 271. He's going to be even slower. I don't think that's how you beat Parker, not to mention that his stamina will suffer too. I agree with all of those statements. I believe the key to this fight, and you'll see it early, first 6 minutes, first 2 rounds, is how does Parker handle Joyce's jab? If Parker is handling it well, in other words, Joyce can't even throw the jab because Parker's too far outside. Parker's getting underneath the jab because Parker has upper body mobility that Joyce doesn't have. That's the other thing too. In terms of body flexibility, it all favors Joseph Parker. Let me sound ridiculous here. I think Parker is one of the most dangerous men now at heavyweight. I think the heavyweight division is moving from a big clunky era where you had flat-footed guys like Deontay Wilder and like Anthony Joshua, right? Guys who weren't up on the balls of their feet, guys who weren't there to dance with you, guys who were in the ring to get a knockout. Well, we've moved off that to one where movement and angles matter, right? If you're going to beat Alexander Usyk, you're going to have to be able to move with him. Now, that opens the door to a whole different group of fighters. I believe Dillian White is too methodical for this era. I think Dillian White, who really lives off a jab and body punches, is going to find that in this era, you can't hit a Parker or a Hunter or an Usyk with that jab. Dillian White won't be able to set the table. The Tyson Fury Usyk fight is so dangerous that I feel that Fury deliberately has pivoted to Anthony Joshua, a more familiar opponent. Right? Tyson Fury wants millions of dollars, more than he wants Alexander Usyk. When that Tyson Fury Usyk fight takes place, assuming he beats AJ, I think he does, assuming he does so in a way where he can be ready to fight Usyk next year, I think what Tyson Fury is going to find out is that not only can he not beat Usyk on his back foot, but when he tries to crash the pocket, he's going to have problems because Usyk's going to be moving. This isn't a Deontay Wilder who's going to allow Fury to set up on his chest. This is someone who's moving. Let's make another point since I've mentioned Tyson Fury. Let's make another point. Ali in the 1960s, right? Perhaps the best heavyweight I've seen, skill-wise, right? Fury's close. But I would say the Ali who beats Cleveland Williams is the best I've seen, right? We can debate that. You have your favorite, I have my favorite. But understand, by the time you get to the 70s, Ali, who couldn't be found in the 60s, unless you were Henry Cooper and Sonny Banks, right? You couldn't find Ali. He's moving too much, right? And of course, just like this era, Ali comes along at a time of flat-footed heavyweights, not just Sonny Liston, but Ernie Terrell, right? A few other guys, Henry Cooper, right? Well, the Ali of the 70s, once people figured out how to crash the pocket on Ali, right? Because Ali's older, he loses his legs while he's out of the ring, while he's suspended. The Ali of the 70s figures out how to fight you off the ropes. Ali's solution to a fighter who could track him down was to go over to the ropes and to rope-a-dope the guy, right? Hit the guy with shots as the guy came in, tie the guy up. Clinching was a big part of Ali's game, right? Pace himself by leaning on the ropes, resting his legs, picking his spots in fights. Now understand, that's where Tyson Fury and Ali diverge. When Tyson Fury gets in trouble, look at the Steve Cunningham fight. When he gets in trouble, Tyson Fury, unlike Ali, who wants to go over by the ropes, Tyson Fury tries to crash the pocket. Tyson Fury tries to corner you. He's not the guy up against the ropes when he's in trouble. No, he's the guy trying to get you up on the ropes. Right, folks? That's going to be perilous against Alexander Usyk. Right? Usyk's already fought Derek Chisora, who has that same mindset. Usyk has already seen that Tyson Fury has a problem against athletes. Usyk has had the opportunity to watch Fury against Otto Wallin. He's in trouble in Otto Wallin in that fight because of cuts. Right? He's seen Fury against Deontay Wilder, the third fight. He's in trouble in that fight because he's been knocked down twice. The Steve Cunningham fight, he's knocked down. Tyson Fury then becomes predictable. He starts trying to crash the pocket. Now, here in this fight, I know I'm rambling. I know it's almost 20 minutes. We'll go to 25 minutes here. Here in this fight, just understand Joe Joyce can't move anything as in any way that resembles Tyson Fury. Joe Joyce is somewhat tethered to the pocket. Right? Understand, too, there's more to Joseph Parker than meets the eye. Parker is actually a puncher. Right? Now, Parker should have beaten Dillian White, There's a fake knockdown in that fight. White hits him with a forearm. That shouldn't have counted. You saw who the better athlete was in that fight in that 12th round when Dillian White is barely hanging on. Right? I believe that Parker, who was the first man to go the distance with Anthony Joshua, would have done a hell of a lot better in that fight if the referee had allowed him to fight inside. Joseph Parker, for as good an athlete as he is, actually has inside boxing skills. Now, I've seen Parker blow it before in huge fights. The Andy Ruiz fight, here is Parker fighting for the heavyweight title. Right? And Parker almost gives that fight away. I consider that a location fight. The fight was in Parker's backyard. The judges awarded the fight to Parker. But that fight's disturbing because the odds are never higher than when you're fighting for your first heavyweight title. And Parker was lackadaisical in that fight. The first Derek Chisora fight, it's puzzling. You're fighting Chisora, who really is kind of a people's favorite type of guy. Right? I think fans relate to Derek Chisora. They see Chisora as one of them. You're fighting Chisora in Chisora's backyard. Right? We're fight fans here. We know that Chisora's going to try to start fast. Joseph Parker looked uninspired. Joseph Parker gets caught. It's Derek Chisora who forces Joseph Parker to fight him. You can't have that. Okay, I see Russell Morgan here has said Joyce will keep coming and Parker won't be able to figure out an exit strategy from the pocket. Russell, I don't believe Parker's going to be in the pocket until he hurts Joe Joyce. I think Parker is going to time the spots between Joe Joyce's jabs. I'll agree, Joe Joyce can double up and triple up on the jab. I'll agree with that. Right? But Parker is too fast. So Joe Joyce is going to realize that he can't, methodically double and triple up on the jab because Parker's going to move and Parker's going to make him pay. Right? Let me see another one. Okay, Mr. Solitude keeps claiming that I'm in my bathroom. Folks, I'm not in the bathroom right now. I'm actually in my bedroom, sitting on a bed, not on a john. Okay, I see here, Tuber writes, the volume punching of Joyce is a lot. You've got to be kidding me, folks. Joyce has the slower hand speed here. Eventually, as this fight develops, Joyce is going to have to be reacting to what Joseph Parker does, not vice versa. I would worry more about Parker's volume than Joyce's volume. Right? Jack Gallagher writes, what is your bet for the fight, Richard? Okay, fair enough. I like Joseph Parker in the fight. Understand. I think Parker wins the fight, and they're giving me better than even money odds. I also do expect this fight to go a few rounds. You should know, though, that AJ stopped Joe Joyce in the amateurs. Right? Guys can look like they have great chins when they're fighting, slower-footed guys. Just understand Joe Joyce was stopped in the amateurs. Let me say this, too. Someone has Joe Joyce and Kid Galahad to both win in rounds 7-12 at 30-1. HMQ, because I believe Joe Joyce loses this fight, I believe you lose that bet. Right? Just being blunt here. BM says, I don't see Parker hurting Joyce. When was the last time that Parker got a TKO? Well, let me just point out that it's been a while, but that's in part because of the higher quality of Parker's opposition. Parker has a punch, Didn't Parker drop Dillian White? Right? Let me see another one. Okay. Queensberry card. Is Parker going to get a decision? Understand that Parker actually is now set up in the United Kingdom. He's hanging around people like Andy Lee, right? Tyson Fury. I understand those guys no longer spar, but Joseph Parker is at home in the United Kingdom, right? I believe this is going to be his third or fourth fight at the venue. In a situation like that, I'm not worried about Parker being hometown because the people in the community know him, right? Let me see what else here. Joyce looked too bad defensively. Wow, the messages are coming fast and furious. Let me just say that's the problem Joyce has. I know where Joyce is going to be. He's going to be in the pocket and he's going to be relatively upright. Right now, I'll agree. Joyce has great timing. You see people like Joe Hanks trying to run in on Joyce, right? And Joe Joyce, when he knows where you're going to be, Joe Joyce is able to hit you on the way in. I'll agree with that, right? And Joyce is a guy who, if you don't change the dynamic, he's going to destroy you. So Daniel Dubois, who knows what Dubois is thinking, he's at the end of a jab for round after round, right? Joseph Parker has a zone where he can move, where he can actually get low and move to different locations, right? He's much more athletic than a Joe Hanks, than a Bermain Stavern. I believe he's going to show you Joe Joyce's defensive lapses, right? Let me grab another comment here. Okay, the jab is going to be key for Joyce, writes Al Montas, right? That's the problem, folks. Joyce has a stationary jab, right? The guys who set it up where you know he's going to jab and you can't do anything about it are the guys with mobile jabs. Tyson Fury, Ali, right? These are the guys where you're in the ring, you say, okay, I know this brother has a jab. I'm not going to stand there and get hit with the jab. The problem is the guy throwing the jab isn't standing there either. He's moving. Larry Holmes, he's moving. Joe Joyce isn't moving. Joe Joyce is not up on the balls of his feet. Look at his feet, folks. So you're in against Joe Joyce. He has a great jab. Aren't you going to say, if you're an athlete like Joseph Parker, the underdog here, who I'm taking in this fight, if you're an athlete like Joseph Parker, isn't there a point in this fight where you're going to say, okay, well, since this guy who's not moving is throwing this great jab, let me go stand over here away from the jab. Let me force this guy to lift his feet, to actually come find me. Now, let's be real here. With a mobile jab, the guy throwing it is much more coordinated than Joe Joyce. So, somebody here tell me, what's the difference between Joe Joyce and Sonny Liston? Liston had a great jab, just like Joyce. It's a great jab, folks. But Liston against Ali couldn't find Ali. Right? Ali's on the balls of his toes. He's moving around. Liston had to pick up his feet. Liston had to walk toward Ali. Couldn't find him. The point I'm making in this video is Parker's movement is going to be a problem for Joe Joyce. Joe Joyce's jab is going to be neutralized by that movement and by Parker's upper body. And when it comes to offense, again, just to understand, Parker drops Dillian White. He stops Demetrenko. He has a punch. Jay Foreman wrote, even in the Dubois fight, Joyce was getting lit up. He has a solid chin, but that's not a good sign and won't last forever, especially in this division. All I could say to that comment is agreed, right? BM says Joyce has a slow jab, but it stops guys right in their tracks when it lands, forces them to reset. I'll agree with that. But Joyce hasn't been fighting. AJ, Andy Ruiz, AJ as a pro, Andy Ruiz, Yui Fury, Dillian White, those are the guys that Parker has fought, right? And so just food for thought. Let me say this too. The religion of gravity, I'll make this the last question. The religion of gravity, Furies are the only dancing heavyweights. Let me just say, there was a time, and we'll get back to that time. I would argue that Usyk can dance as well. But there was a time where you would look at heavyweights and you understood that all of these guys could get up on their feet and move. Right? Sure, you had the Foremans, you had the Ernie Shavers, right? But just understand, dancing, everyone got the concept. We move too far away from that, and that's a necessary part of the sport. Your opponent has more problems when he can't find you, when he doesn't know where you're going to be, right? We're coming out of an era where you knew where Vladimir Klitschko was going to be, right? Vitaly was a better fighter because Vitaly's an optical illusion. You knew he was in the pocket, but as you came in the pocket, Vitaly had this lean thing going on where you couldn't find him in the pocket. But understand what happened. Vladimir Klitschko opens the door to Anthony Joshua. To understand Joshua, you need to look at Vladimir Klitschko. They're the same type fighter. Now, I'll agree, things get murky, they get uncertain the longer Joshua is with Robert Garcia, right? But under his old trainer, you knew what Joshua was going to do. We understood that he wanted to have Klitschko's jab, which was a great jab, right? You understood that he wanted to throw overhand rights. He wanted to do 1-2s, right? You got that. You have Deontay Wilder. Okay, the Wilder people have directed me to the Bermain Stavern film, right? The second fight where Wilder knocks down Stavern off a left hook, right? I would argue that you have to search in Wilder's past to find fights where Wilder hurts guys with his left hand. This era became so flat-footish that Wilder literally has lived off a straight right. Right? I'm just telling you, that would be unthinkable in the 1960s. So now, movement is back in the heavyweight division. Alexander Usyk can move. Alexander Usyk can dance. Other guys can move too, right? Michael Hunter. The Michael Hunter Yui Fury fight is going to be a foot speed fest. You're going to notice the two guys changing feet with regularity, right? Understand too, just like Yui Fury has fought Joseph Parker, Michael Hunter has already fought Alexander Usyk, right? These guys behind door number 2, the guys with legs, the guys who can move, right? They have world-class experience just like the sluggers do. So now you have what I call a switch, right? Joseph Parker has been tethered to the pocket in some fights. But understand, Joseph Parker can move. I have no idea what he was doing against Dillian White, standing around, allowing a pocket to form, allowing White to land his jab. I think Parker now knows better. I'm expecting Parker to circle Joyce. The best way to take away a guy's jab is to dissuade him from throwing it. I'm expecting Joyce to have a problem finding Parker. I think Parker feels at home in the UK, but Parker now realizes, having lost the big fight in the UK, the Anthony Joshua fight, I think Parker now realizes, look, I have to make a statement here. I think he methodically outboxes Joyce. I think he wins the fight by a few rounds. He doesn't have to hurt Joyce to win the fight. In my opinion, Joyce has to hurt him to win the fight and is going to have a hard time doing so. Parker's been knocked down. Dillian Whyte knocked down Joseph Parker. Okay, fine. I think Parker, who has had some uninspired fights, that Dillian Whyte fight, the Derek Chisora, the first one, right? I think what you have to do when you see Parker fight in an uninspired way, the Andy Ruiz fight, where he somehow got the decision, right? What I want people to do is turn on his fight against Hughie Fury. Turn on the second Derek Chisora fight. Folks, look at the counters. Right? Ceiling-wise, the underdog here has the higher ceiling. I believe this fight comes down to Joseph Parker. How badly does he want it? If he comes in and he's motivated, I believe the gamblers, the casinos that have made him an underdog, are going to quickly figure out that they've made a mistake. Let me say this too. I know Joyce has a great chin. I would not be surprised. While the hedge for me is the over. And that's easy because, of course, Parker, how do I put this? I think Parker wins the fight, and I'm getting better than even money odds. Joyce has a reputation for having a big chin, has never lost, so he's never been stopped. Right? So it's easy when you're getting better than even money odds to have a hedge and to have that hedge be the over. But understand, if Parker is on his A game, he could stop Joyce. Right? Daniel Dubois was too polite. Daniel Dubois conceded the pocket to Joyce. Parker doesn't have to. There's going to be a part in this fight where I believe Joyce starts to get desperate, where Joyce is going to realize that he needs a stoppage. And I believe that's when Parker is going to have openings. Parker, again, there's more to him than meets the eye. Parker hits hard. Right? Let's remember, Joyce gets knocked out by Anthony Joshua as an amateur. That's how I see it. The hedge I like here, the day of the fight, is the underdog simply to win. Right? That gives you Parker from start to decision. Right? Hedged with the over. Understand, you're in the penthouse. If Parker wins this, right, by decision, you win both halves of the bet. Or by late stoppage, that's above the over, you win both parts of the bet. But let's be adult. I need for you to understand the risk involved. If Joyce wins the fight, and if he does it inside of the over-under, you lose it all. That's how I see it. Let me hear from you even after this video. In the comment section of this video, let me know your thoughts, and we'll do a post-fight video, but feel free to revisit this video to comment on either my thoughts during the video or on the thoughts of the great group here that showed up for it. Thanks for stopping by.